gonna be a garage.
No, that wasn't. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Alton Board of Selectmen's meeting, May 7th, 2024. Everybody, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and moment of silence. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Are there any changes to the agenda?
No. Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
as usual, I would like to propose an addition under new business to discuss emails to the Board of Selectmen.
Okay. Okay. Anyone else? Okay, we have a motion
Make a motion, we approve the agenda
as amended.
as amended.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The public participation policy applies to all selectmen meetings. A copy of it is in the back of each agenda posted outside this meeting room and on the website. The town clerk tax collector's office will be closed on May 15th, 2024. The staff will be attending the town clerk spring workshop. We, Alton, the New Hampshire Select Board, together with residents, and in recognition of this event, to hereby proclaim the week of May 5th through the 11th, 2024 as National Municipal Clerks Week in the town of Alton, and further extended appreciation to our professional municipal clerks and all municipal clerks for the virtual services they perform and their exemplary dedication to the community they represent. Thank you to them. Public input on agenda items only. Seeing no one here, we'll move right to any appointments. No appointments this evening. Right to new business, police department lease purchase proposal.
Oh, good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
I'm here before you tonight to seek your authorization for the police department to enter into a 4-year municipal lease purchase of a 2023 Chevy Tahoe. The state bid price from McMulkin Chevrolet is $42,656. They have offered us $16,500 for a Charger to be traded in for a net cost of $26,156. We would utilize GM Financial. They gave us the rate. Is that me?
I don't know what that was, but.
All right. So GM Financial gave us the best rate. And so the annual payment would be $7,315.37. That would be paid out of the police detail revolving account. And the total payment after the 4 years would be $29,261.48. In addition to that, I would also seek your authorization to expend up to $18,798 from the police detail revolving fund to be paid to New England Vehicle Outfitters for the purchase and installation of all the emergency equipment for the Tahoe. I listed that as up to because that represents having to replace all of the electronic components. The majority will not transfer from the Charger into the Tahoe, but we're going to utilize what we can. So if there's some lights that we can save, $100 a light bulb or whatever it is, then we'll do that. But basically that represents the top dollar amount that we'd expect to spend. So that's why I have it up to the $18,798. One thing I want to point out with that is that does not include decals. And the only reason for it is cost. It's roughly $3,000 if we want to do the vinyl decals on it. So if the board felt strongly wanted it to be a marked up car, I would just ask that we adjust that to $21,798. So as a little bit of background, I've been in front of the board a couple of times now, discussing the fleet program, and that we're going to have to sort of adjust our modus operandi on it. just based upon how the police detail revolving fund, the amount that it makes versus the cost of the entire fleet being on a lease. So we just finished our last lease program, made the final payment last year. I think in your packet, I gave you some printouts of how the revolving account was performing. It might make a little more sense if we track each other there. It just gives you kind of a snapshot of what we've utilized that revolving account for. It's not just been lease payments. We've used it for a lot of equipment purchases. So I went back to 5 years to 2019. And this is just to kind of represent what we bring in total income wise, what our expenses are, and those other expenses would be equipment or lease payments. And then representing at the end of year balance, just to give a sense of how this thing has performed. And so you can see, we got a couple lease payments in 2019, the motorcycle lease, and we also did a tablet project, which has got all new tablets for all of the cars, with highway safety grant money too, but we still had a significant responsibility on that, somewhere around $30,000. And as you see going down, we got some more lease payments. We also did a hull replacement on the boat. That cost was split between 2020 and 2021. We paid down the Ford truck, and you see in 2022 and 2023, I took a portion of the lease payment was made from the revolving account that I used surplus from the operating budget, because I'm trying to maintain a decent balance. As you can see, we got pretty low at the start of 2019. We had 128,000. We do a couple of projects. We're down to 55,000 at the end of that year. We're down to 42 by the end of 2020. And then we start ratcheting up, and part of why that is because we didn't make lease payments. We were able to use ARPA funds to make those lease payments. So if we had kept going through those lease payments all the way through this, we really wouldn't have much in the account. So saying all that to say, we're trying to create a new strategy for how we do this. We can't do all 9 cars on a lease and afford it out of this revolving account. We have to work either other funding sources or break up that lease. And that's basically why I'm here tonight. As I started investigating this back in the fall of 23. And that's when I learned that they no longer make the Dodge Charger. It's all EV. So I started looking into other vehicle options, and at that time I learned that the Tahoe was the most economical option. And we had a conversation with McMulkin, and they had one on the premise that was not under contract, but somebody was looking to buy it. He thought the deal might fall through. Some period of time later, he calls and lets me know, hey, it came through or fell through, and asked if we'd be interested. So our name's been on it for several months. We went down so we could take a look at what our trade would be. And we've been kind of holding off because we know we've had this whole budget process, and the priority has been trying to work through that operating budget. So he's held on to this opportunity for me for several months. I know the timing isn't exactly opportune given the default budget, but none of the funds will come out of the operating budget. It'll all come out of the revolving account. And you'll see that $7,000 payment was a lot better than a $41,000 payment. Manageable for what we do bring in. I don't know if I gave you in a packet, if you have another sheet that has more color. If you don't, I have other copies, because I wasn't sure if I got that in the packet or not.
Well, I don't think so.
I don't remember seeing it.
Let me have a. And this is just because I. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Zach.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And I could just rattle these numbers off to you, but it'll help if you can follow along a little bit.
I know, it's information.
But I want to give a sense of what the actual sort of performance of that account has actually done. And so that top table there, the 2019 through 2023, that's just showing our total gross income minus all our payroll expenses, gives you that net per year to give you that average of about 51,000 we're bringing in. And then the second table is showing you all the expenditures that we've made, including equipment and lease payments. And so the average we're spending is 47,876. So we got a couple $1,000s a year that we're basically accumulating there, but not sustainable, especially if we're going to use it to try to buy the equipment and so forth. But I do think that we can manage, if we're not pulling $41,000 out a year, to do the 7,000 as a, I'll call it like turning a ship. We're gonna start changing and rotating this cruiser program, because if I don't, the challenge is they're all the same age. So if we don't start making changes now, I mean, I know they're only 5 years old, the car that we'd be looking to trade in. That's also why we got decent value for it. And if we don't start doing that, the fear is I'll be coming to you going, I need 5 cars or 6 cars.
Right.
So, that's in this deal. I gave you the information for the 2024. We had discussions with McMulkin, they had a state bid price on that as well, but you can see it went up $10,000. It's basically the exact same car, just a different year, and it's gone up $10,000. Just for information purpose too, you can see that, now we're several months post, he's estimating $14,000 trade, versus the 16.5. He's gonna honor the 16.5 for the 23, because that's what our original agreement was. But as you can see, that the value of those trade-ins is obviously just gonna decline over time. So it motivated me to come in today. I don't want to lose that deal. You're looking at, with finance charge and everything, is a savings of $13,984 if we buy the 23 versus the 24. And then going forward, the Dodge Charger combustion engine had come back for 2025, but there's no commitment to make the police version. So I don't know that that's going to come back. There's no other police sedan available, so we're kind of beholden to the SUV. There are some pickup trucks, but for a number of reasons, I'm not really that interested in those. So my recommendation would be that we take advantage of this opportunity with this 23 Tahoe. But I don't know if anybody has any other questions, comments, concerns.
I've seen the 2 cars. What are the 2 numbers the number you want to replace? Which car number is it? 8?
The number 8 would be the car we would do. That's the one that's had some significant damage, some body damage. It just put back together, but the hood's a little off, and so it's one we'd like to disinherit.
And how many miles are on it?
The my printout is here. The miles, one good thing, and I know a lot of people say we have a lot of cars, and we do, we have enough, but if you notice over the last couple of weeks, that lot's been empty. I had a guy go to a detail the other day in his personal vehicle. We didn't have enough cars to man the details that we have. So I know at times it fluctuates. Like sometimes you see some cars parked here, but other times we're looking for even more. But on a normal operation thing, what we can do by having all those cars, is we can rotate through and keep the miles relatively low. So these are 5-year-old cars, and the unit that we're looking at has 56,000 miles. But the average is right around that 50 to 55,000. One car that's assigned that doesn't get rotated through to anybody else is our K9 car. He's up to 118 on his. The reason I'm not looking to replace that is the significant cost for all the equipment. And so the reality is, if I have to put him into an SUV style car, I'm going to buy all new cage stuff, all the different things for a K9 car, which is even more than this 18,000. And so the backup plan is, if his car really truly fails, is we could rotate him into another car, potentially even the one that I utilize, because it's not set up for all patrol stuff. It would be an easy transition into if we really had to find. Right now, it's running really good for him. But that's kind of the backup plan for his. We want to run that as long as we possibly can. Just it's so much extra expense for the K9 car.
How many vehicles do you intend to replace next year?
So there's 2 ways to look at it. So this budget cycle coming forward, I'm looking at potentially doing a recommendation for CRF to start putting some money away so we can start saving up and maybe do every other year, try to buy 1 or 2 cars. The challenge is how much, because if we can keep the cost of the cars is all we finance, and if we can keep the equipment as a direct purchase out of the revolving account, I think it's a better manner to do, especially if I'm going to be doing direct ask, either by direct warrant article or doing a CRF. That might be the transition. Ultimately, I'd like to see, we originally started with at least in the operating budget. I think that would be a good place for it to be, but that would have to be sort of stepped into, right? We can't just throw a big lease payment in there. So with that, I think what we're going to do is put it as the taxpayers and let them decide either to put some money away, start funding up. Because the other part that's difficult to really lock in on a plan is I don't even know what cars are going to be available. As it is, the Tahoes are not producing as many as they were. McMulkin usually does 100 and some units.
Have a 2024?
They do. So part of our discussions with them, because the supply chain's been so bad, they got our name on one. So there's one that's coming that is reserved for us until we say we don't want it. So I gave the numbers here. If you want to have some discussion on even doing the 2 cars, it might be a viable option that saves me from next year, because obviously for next year budget cycle, we don't want to do a whole bunch of asks. And I recognize that because we want the operating budget to get adjusted.
Could you, is there enough in there to be able to lease the two vehicles?
Yes, so if I did factor that in, so if we did combined, the net cost for the two cars minus the trade. So we'd be financing 64,812. That would bring an annual payment of 18,126.
For the 5? How many years is that?
That's 4 years. That's 4 years.
4 years. That's for both.
Yes, correct. And I actually have that here. Sure. That was, instead of me just rattling them off.
Mhm, okay. How many miles on the second oldest car? Well, the next one.
The next car that I'd be interested in, parting ways with would probably be the, unit 4. The mileage isn't that high, and mostly because we've had so many issues with it that we don't run it as often.
Well, is that the one that failed inspection this year?
It did, it's also had a lot of battery, charging
That's the
issues. and that
drain
sort of stuff.
down one. Okay.
Right, and so it's unreliable. I mean, you can go on a call, turn the car off, you come back and then she won't start, so. Never really fully diagnosed what that is, but kind of comes and goes.
Do you have an opinion on the pros and cons of unmarked versus marked?
So I don't necessarily have a strong opinion one way or the other. Obviously, if they're marked, they're more visible. So they get noticed. So if I'm driving through your neighborhood, you might stand out to you a little bit more than just a black SUV coming through. There's certainly some value there. Just normal presence to be parked in the bay or whatever will attract a little more attention. It helps us to stay a touch more stealthy if we are parked on the side of the road, that we're not obviously a police car, and helps for that sort of tactical aspect. But I don't have strong opinions one way or the other. Like I said, it just increases the visibility so that people are noticing our cars coming through a little more often.
You wouldn't have to letter them both, right? You could only letter one and not the other or something like that.
Right,
Keep
I mean,
one.
we could do really whatever we want to do, and we could even put it out there as an unmarked, and if it doesn't,
Mark
people
it.
have a concern about that, we could always mark it later. One thing, like I said, the cars have been used a lot, the details have really picked up the last couple of times we've been in here that we've not had many. So it may be a good year that we could even wait towards the end of the year, and if the account looks good, we can.
What would you
Spend it.
utilize these two cars for? Would they be for general patrol or more for details?
It would, so the initial thought, if we did the one, I would probably rotate that into the supervisor vehicle. That's another one that's got higher miles. That's at 62,000, because that stays on the road because those guys rotate through.
That's
one
the other
car.
unmarked.
That's
Sure.
correct. So it would afford them the ability to carry and have more equipment and stuff that supervisors need. So that would be for the one, and the other one would rotate right into patrol.
So if you said whether this to be seven grand, $7,000 payment coming out of the revolving fund,
Yes,
so it would be 14 for two of them? Or it would be
It's-
it's going to be 18 because
18.
because it's
18,
24
Because of the increase from the
Yeah.
2023 to 20.
and less on the trade.
Now, if you do the combined, that would mean one of the Tahoes is a 23 and one's a 24.
Correct. And as far as I understand, everything inside, interior wise, is the same. So it'd be buying the same equipment, it'd be, the outfitting cost would be
Okay.
the same. So they literally did nothing but change the number in the front.
Same motor,
Same
same
thing.
motor,
Everything's the same.
same.
5.3.
And $10,000 more because they could.
Mhm.
I guess.
Yeah.
we
Did
feel like-
did they anticipate, I mean, if, something happens with the budget next year, are they foreseeing another hike like that for 2025?
It's so hard to predict right now because you watch the news and everything's pushed towards EV, but like I saw a report that Ford lost $130,000 per car on EV, but they're still doubling down on it. So I don't know. I mean, is this push to go that way? I'm not that interested in pursuing it with the
I would take,
infrastructure and all
I
that
would take
stuff.
the combustion engines any day.
So like, we're in this, we're holding to kind of what the market does. And, Tahoe is the only thing I can think for them. I mean, the civilian models with all the bells and whistles and stuff are what, $80,000, $90,000. So I'm sure they're making more money making those than the police ones. So I'm sure it just makes sense for them.
So the 2023 they have there, so we could take delivery of that soon, right?
As
Those-
soon as we do the paperwork, yeah.
Any ETA on a 24? I
So-
know you said our names on one, but what was the?
So he ordered in and he has 3 shipments arrive basically monthly. So May, June and July. Exactly which one I'm in, I'm not 100% sure. The reality is just on sort of a logistics perspective, if we staggered it, if we did a 23, because I go down a car while that gets all swapped up and built,
Mhm.
instead of going down 2 cars while they get swapped out and built. So to be honest, if we did it and then the other one came in June and we're going into July before it really comes back, I mean, it actually work out logistically, but
How long will it take them to outfit it?
that is dependent on what they have lined up in queue. Generally, we've used Nevo before, New England Vehicle Outfitters. They're good crew down there. They've expanded, and so they are producing and turning them over much quicker than they were. And the way we sort of built it, we're not doing anything fancy. We really just kind of went with the nuts and bolts to make that a good police car. So that build they've done, so they're not having to do anything sort of custom or anything like that. So I would imagine it would be pretty quick turnaround for them to do it.
No, the outfitting price was 18,798, because that would be doubled to outfit
Correct.
both of them, so that would
So-
be doubling that
That would,
cost
yeah, that also would be a hit on the revolving.
on the
account.
revolving account as well.
Correct.
Is there, and there's still, if it was something you did, there was enough in there to be able to
Yeah,
do
the
that.
last-
The only thing I'm thinking
It
of
was 108.
is, 100, what'd you say it was?
Is that $108,802.15 in the revolving account?
That was,
Okay.
that was year end, for 2023, and my last report, which I have is from, the end of March, so I don't have April's yet. It was at 109,879. That doesn't seem like a lot, but in the interim, we've worked a lot of details. So there's gonna be some, there's still bills outstanding that haven't reflected in here yet. So you see in the payroll that went out to pay the guy, but we haven't got the money
Get the money
collected
back,
back,
yeah.
so that number's gonna jump up, I think, in April. So I have a little more confidence, like I said, because we are having more details. The fund is gonna be building up a little bit, so I would feel comfortable. Last year, I wouldn't feel so comfortable about trying to do that 36,000 out of it, but I feel comfortable that we could absorb that.
So the total, if it were to be 1 vehicle versus 2, what's the total that would come out of that account? It'd be the 37,596 if you had to outfit both vehicles, right?
Correct.
And then the purchase of both vehicles would total, how much money would we have to take out of that account initially?
So just one lease payment?
Yeah, just that
the
one lease
One
payment.
lease payment
One lease
per
payment.
year, so
Yeah, so
he
that's-
has time to recuperate every time.
Right, right. So now there would be about $37,000 to outfit
For the outfit.
both those vehicles. 37,596 is what I've got.
Yeah.
And plus that's on top of this 64,812.
I just,
If you combine the two cruises,
do they,
Right.
So there was the 37,000, give or take a few dollars for the outfitting.
that's just outfitting both
And then
vehicles.
the total cost, for the 2 vehicles is the 64,812.
Right. No,
Which we
add-
finance,
Yeah.
right. We finance that, so the total with all payments would be 72,507.
507.
507 and you.
And that's not putting us too, it's putting you too dangerously low as far as your,
That would, I wouldn't go much further than that, but I would say that,
Mhm.
the other year. The other factor that we had is we did adjust the rates last year, if you recall.
Mm.
So we're gonna collect a little bit more on the cars. We have the advantage of we charge an admin fee, and part of that is a retirement contribution. If a part-timer works, there's no retirement contribution, so that money just turns to revenue for us. But also, the majority of the officers that we have are hired post to change the retirement system, so they're not making retirement contributions either, several of our full-timers. So that all multiplies the revenue that much faster. So there's only like 3 or 4 of us, one of them being me, and I don't work them. So the reality is we're making a lot more money going into this now as revenue than what we were doing. So, and if we continue on the trend, I'm feeling pretty good that we'll do all right.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, mind if I
I
ask
got
a
a
question?
quick question.
Oh.
The trade-in on for the second, for the 24 Tahoe, you've got it down at 14 grand.
Yes. So when we started talking about looking at that, so when we first talked to him, he was only getting like 13 of the 24s.
Yeah.
So he wasn't even gonna do anything. Once he found out he was getting more allocated to him, and was asking if we were interested in it. He said that the value of that, because we're several months post now, so the value of that charge has gone down because it's another 6 or 7 months old.
Chief, if you don't mind, I just wanted to throw this out here and ask. I understand the, the push to outfit out of the revolving fund in one chunk. But did you happen to get any numbers or wonder what it'd be if you just financed the whole package?
I didn't include it. The rate would stay the same. We could do some rough calculating, possibly. So it'd be the 8.035 was the lowest rate that we got. We would just add that cost to it and then we could kind of calculate it out.
Yeah, I guess the only reason I put it out there is for the board, if they're looking at both of them and you're concerned about depleting the fund too much. I know the chief has done some great calculating and feels comfortable, but the other option that you would have if you would like to do it is the finance companies on the lease will actually outfit too. So if you wanted to take that 37,000 and put that into the overall purchase price, then you would only pay one lease payment. What it would do is give you more time instead of taking that hit all in 1 year.
Right.
So that's just another
That's
option.
another option.
That's just another option.
But you felt pretty confident and comfortable with $72,000.
I do. I think where I'm sort of foreseeing things going is with that revolving account is to almost treat it like your own sort of rainy day fund, the thing that your savings account basically.
Mhm.
So you can pull from it when you need to buy equipment like those tablets. They're already 5 years old. That's getting towards end of life cycle. They're running really good. I'm feeling good about it, but we got to start thinking, I'm going to have that purchase coming here before too long. And I don't want to put that in the operating budget necessarily. I want to use that rainy day account to build that up and make that purchase when we need to.
Is there
And-
any prepayment penalty for these
No.
charge for the Tahoes?
Nope. So, I guess by design, I'm looking to rather not finance equipment in a way. I would rather not finance anything, but we also just don't have that kitty of cash. So if we look at that as more almost like a savings account to offset costs that we know we're going to have. And then when we do, if we get into a rotation with a couple of cars on lease,
Mhm.
and then we're going to roll over to the next lease, depending on how that accounts, we might put more money towards that. So you reduce your lease payment. Or if we have to put a warrant article together, I'd rather just finance or request the amount for the car at $50,000 versus $75,000. If we can fund the equipment, I think we'd have a better opportunity of getting that to pass as a warrant article direct. So that's partly in the background of my mind or my thinking is to try to use that account to finance all that equipment purchases.
Mhm.
And of course, once we get into a rotation, like we did with the charges, we had that first set, the 14s and 15s. We rotated into the 19s and we were able to reuse a whole bunch of that equipment. Right now, I can't predict what that's going to be. So I'm hoping that the tower is going to stay on and we'll see what the market does. If a sedan becomes available, we'll entertain that too, because those charges were about 26,000, I think, when we got them. And now we're operating at 50,000 per car. So
Mhm.
for outfitting.
Drastic improvement.
Yeah.
I mean, not improvement, drastic.
Yeah, going the wrong direction.
100% increase.
Yeah.
So, so that's kind of where my thinking is and why to just rather
I'm
than
worried about
finance.
what's gonna happen later if we don't do something about them now. I've seen the cars personally. I know what they're,
Mhm.
what they. go through.
We're in good shape for the most part.
Right now.
We are.
Mm.
But if we wait too long, it's just, and I've seen other departments kind of struggling through this sort of thing that, yeah, if you wait and you get caught up behind and then I'm here going, oh, I need 5 cars and you know, that's going to be too much to do. And that account certainly won't be able to fund that. So,
No, no.
that, I think this is a good step to start turning the boat. And again, if we did the 2, that really puts us in a much better place as far as working into a rotation, because we do have 10 cars total. So if we're doing 2 every year or every other year, and if we did 2 this year, instead of trying to go after something necessary for 25, we might be able to hold off until 26
26, and that's what I was thinking.
and make the whole overall budget process a little bit easier for everybody next year. So that would be another advantage of doing that 24 this year. But that's really up to you guys.
Why did you elect to go with the 4-year?
My grand plan initially was to try to get into our primary patrol cars. We have 8. And so if we did a 4-year lease with 4 cars, and then those would be frontline, when that 4-year lease ends, you get another 4 cars, and basically you end up on this rotation of 4 years and 4 years. And so by the time you're getting those traded in, you've used them for about 8 years, which is a healthy lifespan for a police car. that was somewhat of the framework that I was operating on for the 4 year. We could push it out longer if we wanted to try to get that payment down. Certainly an option, but I don't want to extend the payment out too long or increase the rate too much.
No, I was just thinking, I mean, we're replacing 5-year-old vehicles, so you say though the anticipated life would be 8 years. It seems to me it'd be logical to approach this on a 5-year term for the loan, lower your payments. And then if you did roll the equipment in, to that, I think the equipment comes out to, maybe $4,800, $4,700, a year. So might work out.
Yeah.
Could be less of a hurt to the
Yep.
fund.
The board would always have the option too, and the chief, like you said, that was a good point of the fact that, there's no prepayment penalty, and the reason that these cars are paid off right now, so, you just, so you know, to your point, this was originally a 6-year lease. We paid them off early. So that option would be there too, that if we wanted to make sure that the board wanted to make sure that the fund stayed healthy at the end of each year, even if we had surplus, because we did a couple of years prior to this year, we probably won't because of default and everything, but the board would always have the option of putting more money down to reduce that payment over time as well. So
Yeah.
just
Mhm.
don't.
Yeah, it's always nice to have that option
Mhm.
available to you.
Yeah.
And,
It is.
Is there a way to let him make the judgment call on like Drew had said, a 4-year versus 5-year, just make it a
5-year versus 4.
yeah,
yeah.
4-year versus 5-year lease, and is there a way to let him, can he get the okay from us and then give him to be able to pick which one is more financially responsible? Is there a way to do?
Oh, yeah, the board can set
can do
any
that.
kind of stipulations in their motion. If he wants to, if you want to explore that.
It
So.
changes the numbers. though.
Everybody.
Well,
I mean,
what it
Drew made a
might,
good
what it,
point.
It'll
it's gonna-
change all our numbers.
In a 5-year, I'm assuming,
He would-
Todd would have to look into it
I
as,
sort
but
of-
I'm assuming the interest rate will change. Usually when you go up in years, the interest rate bumps a little.
Is
bit.
it something you would need time for to go back and look at this, go into a 5-year instead of a 4-year and then come back to us?
Yes, it would. I have one of the finance institutions that I did, I think might be in your packet, the Municipal Capital, which is one that we actually used for the last one, but GM ended up with a lower rate. He gave it to me with a 4-year and a 5-year. And he was the first person I talked to, so I was in that frame of mind, and then I stuck with the 4-year again, trying to get it done and work a quick rotation. So that one shows, so it goes up, goes from 6.4 to 6.5, but they also have this other rate factor that they add into it too, so it's a little deceiving to show it as a 6.4, but it does go up a little bit on that 5-year, and this could be an option. I mean, if we wanted to do it, my concern where we stand now is this guy's been holding this car for me for a while, and
Well,
I've
what
put
if,
him on ice a few times.
what if we were able to do the 23 the way that you had discussed, right? If we did the 23 the normal way with the 4-year plan and taking the money out of the account to outfit it, right? And taking the 24, having him table the 24 till he can get us the 5-year plan with the, the term, the rate, and then being able to finance that as an entire package and not have to take the money out of that account to outfit it. Using it as, financing that part of it. Is that possible?
I mean, anything's possible. I just think that might be,
Complicated.
well, yeah, very complicated.
That's gonna
Yeah.
complicate things.
To do one and one,
To do
one
one
way
and
and
one,
one
yeah.
a different way?
But the other, I'm just trying to help to make this most, work, because I'm in agreement as well. The increase with the cars and everything else, we have to change our entire philosophy on how we're gonna work this thing with the 100% increase on vehicle costs.
Right.
But what you could do, timeframe, because I understand, the chief and I had talked already, and, the big concern was holding on to this vehicle as long as they have. But the timing was horrible because of the vote and the default, so, but what you could do is, if the board chose to and you wanted to make a vote or a decision to support it, it's gonna take a month to get it will take at least a month to get everything set up in the financing, all the paperwork, because I know those contracts when they come through are gonna be lengthy.
Mhm.
But I think and correct me if I'm wrong, chief. But I think all he really would need at this point is a commitment that we're gonna purchase. The board can later make the decision whether you want to do 4 or 5 at our
5, yeah.
next board meeting. But I think you need a strong commitment so that you can say to the dealership, yes, we're gonna take it, or they're gonna take our name off it. So if you want to do it that way, if you're unsure and you want to do
So,
it that way.
and that way they would
Would
be
he
actually
wanna-
putting in no amount on it.
Would he want a deposit or anything to hold these things or?
No, he's been really excellent to work with. He does all this municipal stuff. He knows that there's a process to it. I just had said, oh, I think I'm gonna get it in this meeting, and I've kind of kicked the can down. That's where I feel like I'm not holding up my end of the bargain, but if I call him and say, hey, I had the meeting, well, yes, but we're relooking at the financing, the best option,
Mhm.
and I'm gonna be up at the next meeting to get a final, but we are purchasing the car. I think, yeah,
So let's go with the numbers that we currently have. With the option of going into a 5-year lease, poses a 4-year lease, and you find out the information on that, giving you the okay. If everyone agrees to this, now to, enter into an agreement, but also contingent on what it's gonna be as far as years. Whether it's a 5-year lease or 4-year lease and anticipating the increase.
Is
Okay.
on 2 or just one, on the 2023 and the 2024?
I think both.
Okay,
I agree with both.
I agree with both.
Does this salesman have any idea at all that you might have walked out of here tonight with the board saying, why don't we look at purchasing 2 vehicles?
Yes, so when we had that discussion about the 2024, I told him because of the price increase, he knows it's a big jump. I wasn't sure if that was gonna work out, that I'd be able to pull off both of them. So I told him I was very interested in 2023 and keep us, but he doesn't have it yet, so it gives us a little bit of time. I don't feel quite the same pressure on the 24. But he knows we're interested. I just didn't know if I was gonna be able to make it work, depending on how.
It might come in at a better rate.
Yeah, I didn't know if there was any leverage that could be
Right,
used to say,
right,
hey, I'll take
exactly.
2.
A little bit
Right.
better rate. If you haven't discussed it, it
And-
might
and
change
Really
things.
good. We are using GM Financial, so it could be, I mean, it's kind of in-house for them in a sense, so yeah, we can certainly negotiate through that and see what we can do to work out a plan, and I can do it different ways. I'll do it with the equipment, without the equipment. We'll take it, a look at all angles. But
And
at least if I know,
Is 2 weeks enough for you to have all that stuff for us so we can make a decision on this thing?
yes, unless you want me to go back and retrace my steps in more financial institutions and check and
Mhm.
try to get those quotes. If I do that, it'll take maybe a little more time, but if we're comfortable with GM Financial, which is already the lowest rate, we'll just work with them and see what the
Yeah.
options that they have. And we'll come back with that sort of spreadsheet of those options. We'll lock in on what we're doing, but.
Right.
Because if the rate's a
Exactly.
little better doing both of them, then we wouldn't be afraid to put the,
Equipment on it.
The equipment on it.
So.
Any other questions? I don't mind making a motion.
Yeah,
Good.
I just have one last question.
Okay.
Unrelated to the Tahoes. What is this Humvee?
So we had a Humvee through the LESO program. So it was from the federal government. We utilize it for emergency management stuff. It was designed to pull that trailer that we have for that. We had it for a number of years and we had all sorts of problems with that.
Mhm.
Basically, they handed us well, anyway, they didn't need it anymore. So we utilized it as much as we could, but it really was kind of more of a money cost thing than anything. And we were able to sell that for 25,000. So what we ended up having to do, because that money had to come back to the town, we put out a warrant article requesting that those funds, those 25,000, be put to the revolving account.
Okay.
And that was utilized to purchase the pickup truck.
Got it. Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, I'm gonna take a stab at this. Okay, I'd like to make a motion to authorize the chief of Alton, Police Department to enter into a lease purchase with GM Financial for a 2023 Chevy Tahoe Pursuit and a 2024 Chevy Tahoe Pursuit. With a net cost of the two for $64,812. Also, which our payments would be of 18,000, to be determined, but 18,826. I'm gonna add that afterwards. With also authorization to expend 37,596 on the equipment to outfitters, the vehicles, both vehicles. out of the revolving police detail revolving fund for a total of this of $72,507, contingent upon the chief negotiating the purchase of 2 police vehicles and outfitting both of them as opposed to only one, and authorizing the chief to negotiate a 5-year lease versus a 4-year lease.
I'll second that.
Everybody,
Do you need to mention the trade-in or is that covered?
also with a trade-in of
16,500.
16,500 on one current vehicle, and I'm not sure what it would be on the second.
14,000.
14,000.
30,000.
14,000 on the second current vehicle. Do we have a second?
Second that, but again, we're good.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye,
All right, thank you, gentlemen.
thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to commend the chief on the incredible amount of detail he has provided here.
Absolutely.
Um,
Thank you,
it's-
chief.
I don't think we
Good
came up
job.
with any questions that weren't already answered in here.
Try not to drown you with information.
It was very well put together.
All right, thank you, appreciate
Thanks,
it.
chief. Thank you. Okay, drinking water and groundwater advisory commission.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, what you had is some information in here. So I had a meeting with the Conservation Commission Chairman, Gene Young. He came to me to bring a proposal to the board for the purchase of a piece of land that is adjacent to the Morse Preserve. It would be an adjacent property of 385 acres. In that information that they provided, there's a locus map that shows the location of the area. So the purchase of this property, would be through, a drinking water and groundwater bureau, grant or funding source, let's put it that way. I'm not sure if they actually call it a grant. And right now, what he is looking for from the Board of Selectmen, if you're in agreeance to it, is basically a letter of support for their application. So he,
Application for funds.
for funding, yes. And basically the information that they put in is that, not only is the property adjacent, it has strong conservation values. It has some wetlands. It has, some strong, habitats in the area for wildlife, and vegetation. Not to mention, like I said, the wetlands, was some information too that by protecting that, it would protect some of the waters in the area of, I believe it was Frohawk Brook that he was talking about. But all of that
Yes.
water starts flowing down in, it's a tributary area into some of the waterways up in that area. And the map would better show you the locations of those. But really what he was looking for at this point in time would be, the board's, support in that first document you have in there is, it's an example letter is what he's talking about. This would be, the example language, that we would put for the grant proposal. So actually, looking at this, it is a grant there. It's titled Drinking Water, Groundwater Trust Fund Grant Proposal
Yeah.
under the reference line. So that's where they're going to be pulling the funding from.
Okay. And how long is, well, they don't know. They apply for the grant and sometimes how long does that normally take before they get some sort of?
It depends on what their, I'm not sure what the application deadline is, because they won't start reviewing them until the application deadline comes in. And some of these don't actually have a deadline. They're always open for application. And they just review each application as they come, because these ones become very complex when you're talking about the purchase of real property. Because you got all the deeding requirements, to get title searches, you got everything else that comes along with the purchase of real property.
Any further discussion?
I don't see any reason to not support this. It seems like Win-win.
Okay, so this is just this is the water, like, just the,
To purchase the land.
The whole
To
entire lot,
purchase
the whole three
the
hundred and eighty-five
385
acres.
And he's gonna, giving them the authority or the okay to apply for the grant for this land and under conservation.
But I will say that, if you look on this second map, you look at the outline, 3/4 of it is part of the watershed wetlands. So a great portion of it, that's why primarily, that's why it has strong, conservation value to them. Because it's not really, I mean, I'm sure that you could find some developable land on it, but it would be so close to the wetlands that it would, their worry would be is that encroaching on the wetlands would hurt it, would hurt the area, the preserve.
If I'm reading the assessor's report correctly, this, once it became a conservation land, we would lose something on the order of $15,000 of taxable property. Is that correct?
Yes, I believe once it becomes conservation, yeah, they would forgo that.
so how much, the question is, I guess, how much land are we willing to lose tax money on every year?
Well, I doubt this is, does it have the actual dollar amount? Because most of this land right now is in current use.
Yeah, I think that's the taxed value is listed at just under 16,000.
Right, right.
So that's the current use value.
Yep, the
So-
tax value. 15,891.
So there is a slight cost, but not much,
No, not much at all.
which is about what we can afford this year.
The wishes of the board.
I'm a negative on this.
Do we need a motion?
Yes,
So I will make a motion to support the pursuit of the purchase of this land through the Drinking Water and Groundwater Trust Fund grant. And have the select board to support this. I guess I don't know who signs, but the chairman, I assume, would sign.
Second?
okay, any further discussion? No? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No.
Aye. Okay. Water bandstand request by Patty Collins.
Yes,
Um,
Mr. Chairman, we received this request, information on. I will say that I rarely see the request for a birthday party on a water bandstand. So I guess that would be something the board would need to consider. Going forward as to,
well, as being someone that's on the, water bandstand committee, and I've been on for a long time and working out there, the only issue I have with this, I'm looking at the application, it looks like it's for 4 hours. 8 people, 4 hours with no way of having any facilities or anything like that for a long period. We've allowed in the past a wedding, a quick wedding with maybe up to 12 people, and it's done in 20 minutes to a half an hour. I don't want to be someone against having a birthday party, but I don't think it's the best location for a birthday party for 4 hours to bring everything out there.
I don't.
And
I agree with
in my
that.
opinion,
I agree
I
with
think
that.
this is not the greatest place for that. Not to mention the date that's on this is, the very first day of next month.
Hmm.
And I know it needs to be power washed, cleaned and painted. So some of this work is gonna be done probably towards the end of this month,
And
and
that's if you
into,
guys finished.
Hmm?
You know, that's if the weather.
and that's if the weather cooperates. Usually anything like that, power washing and painting usually gets done late May, early
You said
June.
the only thing that we really had there was a wedding, right?
We've had weddings that have gone out there and they were out there maximum half hour. They just went out there, they said their vows
They
and they got
vows
off,
and then they come off.
and they
yeah.
come off. This is a physical party of 8
So
people.
there's never been a party, why
No.
start it now?
Yeah,
No.
but for 12-year-olds as well, so
Yeah.
the young,
I can think of the, just think there's better places.
Yeah.
To have a birthday party. And I mean, if anything happens, I mean, if somebody has to go to the bathroom, a boat has to come back in, I just
I agree
don't
with you.
think for 4 hours is a little much.
Well, we always have, just to throw it out there, you know, all the other facilities that are above that can also be rented or requested on land.
Yeah.
So if they
That's
need,
correct.
if they need an area close by, they can always, you know, apply for the conference center right there on
That's
the
right.
water or.
Land bandstand.
Yeah, land bandstand.
But that's my opinion on that one.
Do you need a motion for that? We may have to make a motion for that or just a general consensus?
I think we need to make a motion on it.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think, I'm not sure either way, but the motion's always a safe bet.
Yeah, it's a safe bet. I make a motion that we do not grant the request for using the water bandstand on June 1st, 2024 for a birthday party for up to 4 hours. I don't believe this is a practical place for that.
I'll second that with the, you know, welcome to use any of our other facilities.
Yes.
yeah, can I, if I may, can I amend that just to, I think that not necessarily that we're denying this request on this specific day so much as are we denying the request to utilize the bandstand for birthday parties?
We're denying the request to use it as for a birthday party.
Okay, so I'd like to, if I could have you amend that.
Yes, all right, I'll amend it,
Okay.
and to, not to accept the request for the water bandstand, for a birthday party. And to utilize some of our other facilities that we have in town, if that would help.
Second and as amended.
All in favor?
Aye.
Number 4, emails to the board. Mr. Shea?
And Mr. Chairman, in the course of doing my research on the swap shop issue, I talked to a couple of residents who said, well, didn't you get the email that I sent to the board? And first I thought, "Gee, maybe there's some place I'm supposed to look for these things that I don't know about and I missed them. But after talking to Stacy, I realized that it doesn't appear that we have a reasonable or at least a current policy. She gets them and she holds them in a folder. She says we don't get very many. And most of what we get are sales type brochures and municipal service offers that we probably aren't interested in. But what I would like to do, unless there's a staffing issue or an issue with workload, is just make it automatic policy that any email that is addressed to the Board of Selectmen gets forwarded to the entire board using their individual emails. And of course, as a board member, if you see something you're not interested in, you can just delete it.
Just to put out some information to consider on that. When you start sending emails to all the board's personal emails, everything is subject to right to know at that point in time. I would say my the way that we typically do that is the Board of Selectmen has a read file. And you can take hard copies, you can make hard copies, but we can always make them available in that basket next to the paperwork is the read file. Because the board gets, you know, hard mail too, not just emails, but you guys
Yeah.
get mail and stuff. That's typically how we would transmit that. So if the board did choose to forward that to personal emails and do that, I would definitely caution it, but I would definitely have to go through legal first on that one. Just because I think there are might be some unintended consequences to that if there was an issue of forwarding that, you know, every single email like that out like that. But
Yeah.
just something to consider. I'm just,
Mhm.
you know.
The other thing that I would like to do, I don't disagree with that, and I
Sure.
think as long as we're aware,
Mhm.
and maybe if, Stacy can, if she receives something that needs a look, email the board that there is material to be read. I don't know if that would violate any state statutes or not.
No.
Hopefully not.
No.
But in addition to that, I would like to, under our public participation sheet, which is very detailed, perhaps add a notation that residents who wish to communicate with the board are welcome to do so by either written letter or email, and may stipulate, if they so choose, that their communication be read into the record at whatever the next Board of Selectmen meeting is.
And what's policy right now is hard copies only, no email? Is that the way the policy is now?
I don't think there's a
No,
policy
no,
as
there's no
far as,
policy. So typically
is-
right now, we don't, so the way that things are working, like, for instance, the emails that Dick is referring to, I'm familiar with them because they do get forwarded to me.
Mhm.
Because I have access to that email address too, to sort of sort through between sales emails and whatnot. Not to mention, the other thing is if there's an employee, if there's a employee complaint or something along those lines, that needs to get to the right place.
Sure.
Not necessarily, a lot of people send just general emails to the Board of Selectmen and, not knowing where the appropriate places to go. But those ones particular to the swap shop, so a lot of times what we do, so when Joan Blackwood put her proposal forward for the swap shop, we included in the packet information, all the other emails that came in from neighbors and supporters that weren't here for that public meeting. So
Mhm.
we do make a practice of that if it's, you know, people supporting in on a different one. Like, for instance, we're getting bombarded with a lot of emails on the Cherry Valley proposal on that thing. We're immediately sending that down to planning, so,
Planning.
or zoning and planning, so they know, because they're sending them as a butter opinions. And, you know, that the Board of Selectmen is not the right venue for that because it's in front of the zoning board right now. So that's just sort of an example, but we do, if something is being requested or somebody's sending an opinion, we do include that. And I don't want you to think we just throw it in a read file and it never comes to the board at that point in time. It gets included in the packets for the topic at hand. But then of a sudden, you know, then, like, for instance, you get a lot of emails from the public about issues with their roads. You know, road needs to be graded or road is a problem, and we, you know, they address that to the Board of Selectmen, but we automatically forward that to Public Works Department because they're the ones that are gonna handle
They're
it and
gonna handle
address it and take care of it. But certainly, I definitely get what your proposal is for that, and we can either. I guess the only thing I would suggest, and again, the board's, whatever the board's.
The-
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No. I was just gonna tell you that participation policy, I wasn't here, I wasn't part of it except down as the police chief at the time. And that went through some extensive vetting through legal because we had some court cases because of failure to comply with the participation. So I was thinking when you were making that proposal, I think it's a great idea, but that might be something more appropriate to include under the announcements of the agenda, letting the general public know instead of sending back that particular policy to be rewritten and reviewed about the participation during the meeting, during the session. But
So
Okay, yeah.
every selectman has, they go onto the website for the town hall. They go into each department, they have the department heads and the boards, names and numbers. So a lot of the times, in my opinion, in my case, a lot of people, if they have a question, if they have something to say, they call the selectman. They make a phone call, and discuss something or something individually. Instead of, like you were saying, the danger of actually having an email that goes to all the selectmen, and if they start responding back and forth, that can be an issue. That can be an issue. And it constitutes as almost a meeting. So you have to be careful of that, but, if you look, I mean, you go right on and you see each and every one of the selectmen, and their phone numbers on there, or I do believe so. I think. Maybe not, maybe it's just the office, I thought
I think it's just the office. but
just the office.
Anybody that calls me, I give them your number.
That's why they're all calling him.
Yeah, yeah. But I know, I've had
I just,
phone calls in the
I
past.
would like to
And
make it.
people ask, and I have no problem answering, the best of my ability, any questions that somebody calls.
I would like to make it clear to people, because apparently at least some don't know, and maybe it's not even valid, that if you wish to communicate with the board, you can send a letter or an email and request that it be read
Request.
into the meeting.
Request to come to a meeting and be heard.
Well, but I'm talking about people who, for one reason or other, cannot come to the meeting. They still should be able to express their opinion, view, or request.
Email,
Just email the office.
so it gets to Ryan Stacy and then it gets done.
And then they can put it, like he was explaining, this basket, and goes in there for all the selectmen to look at.
Yeah,
I just.
I'm
for-
not doing a good job of
for-
explaining this, I
so
can
to
tell.
be
but-
kind of the devil's advocate here, the perception from the public could be that they're trying to communicate with the board, but it's being filtered and never making it to the board. So I think we should look at some sort of vehicle that they can communicate with the board without it being filtered. And I don't know if that's, if we create a Dropbox that we only have access to, that all of the emails can be, dumped into that and we can periodically just plow through those, or, I set up a Gmail account that's specifically for my, public persona, if you will, so that protects all other emails from.
Maybe we should just make it more clear in our office that any communication that they want to do with the selectmen, that they do send a letter in, that it goes directly, and they explain to them that it goes directly to the desk of the selectmen, and they all can view it there. And just make it more clear.
Well, I think there's another aspect to this. And I think if someone comes to a meeting and makes a public statement regarding any issue, the public hears it.
Mhm.
If they send you a letter and we sit at a desk somewhere and read it, the public never hears.
Right.
And I think the public should hear it.
Then I think the people have to come in and have a public input. In my opinion, if that's what they want to do, get on the docket, get on the agenda and come in and have their time when they should. That's very clear to everyone in the town. If you have an issue, you want to address the board and you want to do it in a public meeting, those are the proper channels.
Well, they don't even have to under public input at the end of the meeting, right? It's 5
No,
minutes
you
per
got
person
5
on
minutes,
any
yeah.
government or town.
Exactly. It doesn't necessarily have to be the agenda items. That's just one way of doing it. The other way is, like Nick just said, is being in the audience, staying here and giving public input.
I understand that, and I'm glad we do that. I just think that we should give the same latitude to someone who's writing a letter or an email. I'd like to know what they have to say, and I think the public should hear what they have to say.
Somebody it would have to be read into the record
Exactly.
under public input,
Yeah.
so a
For
board.
for
member would
instance, and I
stand up
sat down to,
It could get lengthy. I'm just saying this could get lengthy if a lot of people start doing that. This could eat up quite a bit of the meeting.
it's entirely possible.
Yes, I think that is possible.
Yeah.
And that could be opening a can of worms.
Well, I think we have some provisions that allow us to limit time input. And if it got to be a real issue, I don't think it would unless you had a real hot button issue. And if you did, you need to hear about it. What I had written up, just to see what it would sound like, was a provision that said residents may also communicate with the Board of Selectmen by letter or email. If requested to do so, the board chair will read the correspondence as part of the public input portion of the meeting in accordance with the purpose, procedure, and ground rules outlined below, that be in our public participation. Modified as necessary to reflect that the communication is written rather than presented in person. Maybe I'm just overreacting to all this, but most of us that are on boards and commissions are disappointed, maybe borderline appalled by the lack of public participation and input. I think we should encourage it every way we can. And this is a simple step, but the board would have to decide, of course.
Mhm. Okay.
I really agree with Dick on this. I think making it easier for the public to be heard is only gonna make our jobs easier in the long run on the board.
No,
Nope.
I understand that. We do have a process now.
Yeah, it's not
that
the
they-
easiest
That
though.
it's no, but, yes and no. We announce everything in our meetings, what we're doing, what the agenda is. They see it ahead of time. It's posted. So they know ahead of time, before we have a meeting, it's posted in town hall, it's on the website, it's on, at the, library, it's at the post office. They know what the agendas are that are coming up and what's on there. So if they have questions on that, they can come. See what I'm saying? There is already a process in there.
And they're more than welcome to call the town hall and talk to
That's right.
Stacy and get on the docket and
I,
talk
I
to Ryan to get.
think the information is out there.
Yeah,
People
so-
just,
yeah.
I mean, how much do we have to tell people to? Well, you gotta do this to talk to everyone. There's information out there. There's a lot of ways of communicating town hall. And therefore, town hall communicating with the selectmen. That's why we have public meetings, so people can come in and talk to the selectmen. I just think we already have something in play. It's just up to the people to take advantage of that, in my
To
opinion.
put in the effort.
Put in the effort.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with you. I don't believe, that this board or any of the town agencies does anything less than be as open as possible.
Mhm.
I just view this as one additional option for people to express their views. And I'm reasonably sure that you may find people in town who are residents who pay taxes and who for any number of reasons
Mhm.
cannot get to a selectmen's meeting.
Okay, we'd take that under advisement and, I don't know, are you looking for a vote on this or just?
No, not
informational?
necessarily. I mean, I'd like to do it, obviously. But if everybody wants to chew on it, think about it and seek other opinions, I'm not in any wild rush
Okay,
to do
I
something.
think, yeah, I think I'd like to look into it a little bit more.
Could we get that on,
And see if there's something a little bit easier, something a little bit makes a sense, or look at what we have. Is it enough? I know in the past, we've had with the planning department, they asked permission at one time to actually have a Facebook page. They did. That's informational.
Mhm.
There's other things that are informational, but sometimes that can get out of hand. With comments and things like that, they have to be looked at. But there are a lot of ways, avenues there of communication, in my opinion. And I don't want to be the only one pushing on that.
Did you have a, for instance, where somebody wanted to do this and was unable to?
Not here, but it certainly was very common in the town where it was previously a select,
Oh, okay.
and it was very effective.
perhaps we could get this on the next agenda as well, so we can maybe continue the discussion after everybody's had a
Yeah.
chance to kind of mull this over for a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. All
Absolutely.
right, that's fine.
Stacy, put that on there. Thank you.
Any
Thanks,
more,
Stacy.
Dick, on that, or any more?
No, I beat that one up pretty well, I think.
Well, thank you very much. Okay, old business, DPW roadside mowing contract extension.
What's happening, Scott?
Okay. So I put together a memo. I've reached out to several of our contracts are coming up due. Several of the contracts were done prior to the board making changes relative to the bid policy. These are all items that are well below the threshold on your current bid policy of 30,000. So these, once again, we're working with 2023 numbers still. And so I reached out to the contractor that had been doing the mowing and inquired if he was interested in extending his contract. He was very interested. He enjoys working here. It's relatively close to him. He's in Nottingham. So he would be willing to do so, although his rate is increased by $1.50 per hour per piece of equipment that way. So once again, still a capped dollar amount that we would expend. It just means that we will continue to do less. So it's just how it goes. We have the budget that we have, and you know, what might be 25 or 30%, you know, may end up being 18 to 23%, you know, or whatever it may be that way, as far as the amount of town that will get mowed. So that way. So things continue to increase and the budget has not been increasing. We had discussed about purchasing our own roadside mower at some point in time. And at the time, we really didn't have a staff enough in order to do that. So we kind of let things simmer on that. But certainly that'll be some information I'll pass on to the new Public Works Director to take a look at. We've collected some, you know, some information on that. Those roadside mowers are not something that's really, you know, a hot commodity that you can buy. Generally, they're either been used and abused or well used. Sometimes you do find some that have been leased, or a community that may be rolling them over. They have a, you know, just like the police cars, every 4 or 5 years, they'd be swapping them out. So sometimes you can find a good unit. So we track that and follow it. I've got a bunch of information. I've actually, the town mechanic and the highway foreman have gone and looked at a couple that way. It's a piece of equipment that you have to dedicate somebody to run it. I say dedicate them to it. It's not a, you know, you just, you know, hey, Paul, you run it today, and, you know, Andy will run it another day. Generally, they've got to be, you know, pretty adapt with it. So, you know, it'd be a pretty
Like the grader.
destructive piece of equipment. And
Oh,
and
yeah.
will cause a lot of
you could damage it.
damage.
Very
you know,
dangerous.
That way. But it is a necessity. Mowing the roads, I mean, previously in other communities that I've served, roads were mowed annually. That is, all the roads were mowed annually. When I was in Molten Borough, for an example, very similar type mileage of roads as Alton. And those were mowed annually. It cost that, once again, 2016 is when I left there, and I was paying about between $30,000 and $35,000 a year to have those roads mowed by a roadside mower. One guy with a boom mower, and he mowed all the roads. He'd been doing it for years and had done a good job, fitted in around his haying time and got that done. So if you're able to find those type of contractors that are reliable, to be able to do that. We do about 1/3 of the town per year, so it takes a 3-year cycle in order to get done. The problem with that is, with all this rain, is things tend to grow and saplings and everything tend to get bigger and bigger. Takes more time to mow, and so we lose time and we lose, you know, being able to cover there's always seems to be, I give a list of roads, there always seems to be 2 or 3 at the end of the list that don't get done because there's just not enough time or money in order to do that. So it's one of those things, you know, once again, the department's made a shift from doing just construction work to now doing more maintenance stuff. So I think that this may be something that may be able to be transitioned in and or, fund it, so that they can, the whole town can be mowed annually. That'll keep things mowed down. That'll help out with ditches. It'll help out with maintenance of drainage. So, and sightline and all the other safety stuff that comes along with it. So,
Okay.
But anyways, I would ask the board to, extend the contract. It's still less than hourly rates than, we only had one other vendor, that had bid before. When, this was put out, when Ken was here, still, these rates are still, just below.
Yep.
what
Okay.
that-
$1.50 is not
What's
bad.
that?
$1.50
No,
increases is not.
No.
bad.
that's not much.
No,
I mean, it's almost as, that's fuel, a little less than fuel, so.
right, yeah. So, I'd like to just try to get him locked in on this, as soon as possible, just so that he can put him in this, we can get him in the schedule. Because if he says if you're not gonna be with us this year, he's gonna pick up another town.
And with your budget, you can, with
Yeah,
with this
so
increase
There's
with your
certain
budget,
things that I prioritize within the budget. This is one of them, because it's a safety item. And if in fact you don't mow this year and you want to save $14,000, I guarantee you it'll cost you twice as much
Mhm.
in the future. So if you don't keep up with this safety stuff and some of this maintenance things, yeah, all right, we won't buy any gravel this year to gravel our roads. Your phones will ring right off the hook.
right?
But that may happen, to be perfectly honest with you. We have a fair amount of FEMA work that has to be done. And that money we'll have to take out of, we'll take out of the road, I've talked to the town administrator, we'll take that out of road construction. Which will, help ease that burden. Normally, we would take it out of the operating budget, to be perfectly honest with you. We have a line for that. We would take it out of there, but since we're default budget, then we'll have to go to that line. So that means that there's something in that road program that
That
was
doesn't
put
get
forward to you that won't get done. So people have to understand that when they voted at that ballot box.
Right.
And they go to a default budget, that there is gonna be things. I had people calling me left and right about Lily Pond Road and wanting it to be, taken care of more. We need more gravel up here. We need more gravel up here. And I don't disagree with them at all. It needs to be gravelled. The potholes needed to be cut out. And once again, I have, one person, he's marching around doing grading all those roads, and trying to get that done. And there's not a lot to work with up there, to be perfectly honest with you. And, there's ledge up there and everything else. And it's difficult. Sometimes right now, we're just doing some damage control stuff, and Jack went up today and cut out some of the potholes and try to patch it up a little bit. But there's really not enough to really grade the whole road in some ways. We need to buy gravel, but
You guys been picking up and cutting brush.
that's all we've
Yeah,
been doing for
been
ever since the
Ever
snowstorm.
since that storm.
I've had, between 4 and 5 people and one crew out cutting and chipping brush, so
Mhm.
cleaning that storm damage up.
Yep.
On that side of it. So we're trying, hopefully Jack's hoping that we'll finish that this week.
Oh, good.
Or at least get that stuff that's done. We
Mhm.
still have a lot of hangers that are out there. A lot of trees get a lot of damage. So we'll end up, having to go out with a bucket truck. We've done some, what we call hazards that have been there that, are windshield biters and things that have been hanging out there, school bus issues and that kind of stuff, and getting them down. But it'll be we're getting that stuff buttoned up. To get that squared away and started. I think they started today, actually striping the bay, doing parking.
It's coming out
spots.
good.
Yeah.
I drove through.
Good.
It's looking good, yeah.
Looking good.
Yeah,
Yep.
so they started that today, so we want to
Yep.
get that wrapped up. There is a whole paving project, if people hit you up, that apparently is going through Main Street, out through Route 11. They're gonna pave the main thoroughfare through here, so
Okay.
we'll probably wait to stripe the stuff in town, until we see what they're gonna do.
Do you know when they're doing that?
The water department seems to think that it'll be within the next couple of weeks.
Okay.
Tommy's been out trying to stay ahead of him on some repairs that he had to
He was at,
take care of. He was at Busy Corner today.
yeah,
so-
this corner, I saw him there today. Yeah.
Yeah, so he just didn't want to get caught off guard.
Yeah,
Yes.
And
that's not good.
apparently that happened to the state. They didn't even know they were coming to, get that
Oh,
piece
boy.
done down on 28 South there that,
Yeah.
but the paving guys are chomping at the bit too.
Mm.
so,
Oh, I'm sure they are.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, good
All right.
weather.
So I make a motion, we approve Scott to extend the contract the DPW director extend the contract to Talco Enterprises of Nottingham, New Hampshire at $14,400 for 2024.
Second. Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Scott.
You bet. Hey. You don't need me at all, right? You're all set.
Yes, I do.
You need me, okay.
Okay, selectmen reports. Drew?
Got nothing to report.
Richard?
Actually, I have nothing to report.
I have nothing to report.
I also have nothing to report. Thank you.
What's up with that? All right.
You help me out.
All right, the ZBA met on May 2nd. We had 5 cases that were continued to the June meeting. There was 1 variance that was approved, 1 special exception that was approved, and 1 case was withdrawn. And we now have a new chairman for the ZBA, which is now Mark Manning. That's all I have.
Well, I have a few things to report, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, okay.
So I didn't want to follow in suit. No, just 2 quick things.
Yep.
One is, I needed to make the board aware, the tax collector had mentioned, so just the way our meeting dates fell, the warrant that's going to need to be signed for the taxes is must be ready before 5/16. And because the clerk's office has their training on 5/15, they're not gonna, the clerk's office is gonna be closed that day. So she wanted me to advise the board because they're gonna have to get the board members to sign it. So what we're planning on doing is one or 2 things. Board members can filter into the clerk's office on 5/14 at the end of the day when the warrant will be ready, or they're going to leave the warrant in Stacy's office on 5/15. So board members can filter in and sign it beforehand.
We all don't need to sign it, correct?
You need all 5 or 3.
Well, I think we just need the majority, but we don't have to have all 4, but they're trying. Why, are you gonna be in Florida that week?
Yeah, I'm going, yeah. That's next week, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, that'll be next week.
Yeah.
yeah, okay. Yeah, the majority,
15th
if
is-
somebody's not available, then, as long as we have the majority, but
If I do it over Skype, can you use my.
Is the 15th Wednesday?
I don't think you can do it.
Wednesday?
It's not on the warrant.
That's good, because I don't do Skype.
Okay.
So that was just, a heads up and, we'll, Stacy's very good at reminding.
Yes, she is. Yes, she does.
So, we'll just make sure that we get that done. The deadlines are firm and hard on the warrants, getting it in.
Okay.
So, and then the only other thing I have for you is on the table here, in books, you'll see there was there's a assessing service contract. So, we currently contract services, through Whitley Consulting Group, to assist with our revals and some of the other assessing work and evaluations through town. We're currently in a situation right now where our assessor is going to be out for an extended period of time. Exactly how long is unknown at this point. But because assessing has some vital information and tasks that have to be completed by statute because for the upcoming tax bills. We've reached out to Whitley Consulting and they've been gracious enough to increase their services to cover any of those gaps. This contract was put together just to cover the added, like I said, scope. The rates haven't changed. You'll notice there on terms and compensation. The contractor sum is not to exceed $8,000 for total services without going back to the table and having discussion with us. The reason for that is we did research under the current contracted services in the current approved default budget. We still have $8,266, which they are already the contracted service. So this is the way that they're trying to do these unforeseen tasks that we need done to still stay within the contracted budget. So that cap of 8,000 was put in so that the board could feel you know, feel safe about the fact that we're not going to exceed that funding without coming back for good reason.
Okay.
So, and also because it's an assessing contract and statute, that it had to be submitted to DRA. So you'll see that top page on the contract is DRA's approval, that the contract, that they were satisfied with the contract according to their state statutes and state rules. The only thing that they had requested is a list of employees covered under the contract, so that's being included in is the employees from Whitley and Consulting, which they're a rather small group, so there's only 2 or 3 of them. That was the only addition that they had required, and the fact that if the optional coverage periods, that if we have to extend for some reason, that DRA be notified on the contract, but currently we are hoping that the current term listed on the contract, the coverage period, initial coverage period at the top of page 1 is May 8th through July 8th. And that will get us through everything that we need to do right now, and then we can reassess where we are with the current situation.
Okay. All right, okay, thank you.
Yes, so all that we need from the board, if they're in agreement with it, is the authorization to enter into the contract, and I have the ability to sign on behalf.
I make a motion, we approve the contract for, just was looking at it, Whitney Consulting Group LLC, and authorize the town administrator to sign on behalf of the town.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Okay, approval of the minutes for April 9th, 2024, public session.
Wanted to make a note that on item 5, the default budget discussion, we had requested a last year's actual expenditures, the budget.
Yes,
Or did you want last year's actuals, or did you want current actuals?
Wanted last year's total expenses for that fiscal year.
Okay, sorry, I misunderstood that. I thought you wanted actuals, the copy of the current budget with the percentage that I was reading off of. To you folks didn't have an actuals column to date for 24, so you're looking for totals for 23.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
I will make sure you have that then.
thank you. Anything else?
I make a motion, we approve the April 9th, 2024 public session minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Abstain, I wasn't present.
Okay. Approval of the minutes for April 23rd, 2024, public session.
I make a motion, we accept the April 23rd, 2024 public session minutes.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain, I was not present.
Yeah, that was a fun one. Glad you're back.
Okay, and consent agenda, approval.
I make a
Mr.
motion.
Chairman, go ahead.
No, you go for it.
All right. I move that we accept the consent agenda for May 7th, 2024 as presented.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we have no appointments, requests for appointments this evening. Public input for 5 minutes on anything in town. Seeing no one present, we'll close the public input. Have it here somewhere. Okay, I make a motion to enter into a non-public meeting per RSA 91-A:3 two. Under A.
Second.
Let's do a poll,
Oh, okay.
Drew?
Drew Carter agrees.
Agreed?
Agreed.
Agree. Yes. Okay. We're in non-pub.